Hi there, this is Usha Pandit, your Mind Springs English teacher. Today I'm going to do a really important lesson for English teachers. So I'm going to do a lesson called Reading to Write. Okay. What you need to understand is that our textbooks, all those stories, the fiction and non-fiction passages that we have are all what I call model or mentor texts in order to help us to write better or to help our students to write better. But only if we do it in a way where we bring to their notice certain points in the writing or stylistic devices or certain parameters and areas that will help them to use it in their own writing. And I am going to show you this today. I am going to talk to you about those parameters. But before I do that, let me talk to you about a passage or a text, what it would be like. So I am going to read it out to you and then I will move away so that you can take a screenshot. But let us read the passage. So let us say there is a book in a passage in grade 8 or 9 and this is what it says. A very small passage. This is the kind of passage that you can get from anywhere. You want to get passages, there's my book Writing with Ease has a lot of passages, has a lot of wonderful examples that you can easily use for your students. If your students have them, both of you can read it together. So there are many advantages in the students and the teachers having the book. But let me give you a quick sample of what I mean when I say that this is how you should teach reading, which will lead to writing. Okay. So therefore, you actually kill many birds with one stone. You do reading, you do comprehension, you do vocabulary, you do inference, you do stylistic devices, and you then come and do writing. So it's fantastic to do a lesson like this. It's worth it because this is real living English, as opposed to reading something and then doing question answers on it, which is a waste of time. Okay. So let's begin. So I'm going to read the passage to you and then I'll give you a chance to take a screenshot of that. The family was trudging in a single file through the dense undergrowth. As they sweated, they waved sticks at buzzing flies while trying to stay sure-footed over the thick knots and tangles of roots below. Accompanied by an effortlessly agile local guide, they could barely breathe as the jungle, steaming and hissing, stole their air. They stopped in a clearing and took countless photographs. The howler monkeys broke into outraged whoops and screams, and tropical birds, higher still, splashed the canvas of the jungle with bright colors of flecked green into patches of blue sky. So this is the passage. Now I remember doing this passage in a school once, and then as I read it and they read a little bit in silence and started to analyze it, there was this boy who called me and he said, "Ma'am, what is trudging?" Before I carry on, let me just move away for a second and give you an opportunity to take a screenshot. So when I did this in that school, there was a boy who called out and said, "Miss, what is trudging?" And this is what children typically do. They start reading and on the fourth word, they hit a word that they don't know and they panic. So now if there were teachers who were sitting there who almost jumped up to give him the meaning, because that's again what we are trained to do. A child asks a meaning and you give him the meaning immediately. And then you say, "I'm a good teacher, I solved his problem." However, that's not what I did. So I said to him, "What do you think it could mean?" So if you read through the passage, you will get a rough idea of what they are talking about. And then you tell me what trudging could mean. Could it mean that the children were eating pani puri? So there was a bit of laughter. That's all very good because you want to lighten the mood of the class. So I said, "Do you think cannibals were going to feed on them?" What do you think the word trudging means there? So I said, "Read it and tell me. What can it mean?" And He looked sheepish after some time and he said, Miss Walking. So you see, if you read it, he's moving through a dense jungle. What can it mean? What can trudging mean? When you're moving forward, you have to be walking. And walking is good enough. You don't need to know every nuance of trudging in order to understand this passage. That's all that's needed when you are dealing with an unseen passage. So that was one thing that we solved. So the lesson from that is, do not give children meanings, let them guess it from the context and they will be fine. Otherwise, there is a tendency to believe that if the teacher doesn't give us the meaning or we don't know the meaning, we cannot move forward, and this is very harmful. Okay, so that's something to remember. You question like I did. Do you think they're singing a lullaby? Say something that will make them laugh, but they'll get it. Then I went to the clusters. So there are a lot of clusters of senses there. So when you have a jungle that you are describing, you will describe it through your 5 senses. That's how we all know the world, through our eyes and our smell and our taste and our touch and the sounds that we hear. So what senses do you find here? Now students are reading the passage again and busy ticking words of what the senses are in this. That's one way to understand the passage better. They are working. You are only asking them to look for senses. That's all. So that was done. That was not very hard at all. And then we came to this hissing and steaming, jungle hissing and steaming as it stole the air. See, a hissing and steaming jungle. Again, this is a place where children will have a problem and stop and say, we don't know how a jungle can hiss and steam. So you ask them, do you think there's a figure of speech there? What is it? So they will get it. They will say it's personified. The jungle is personified. It's like a human being hissing and steaming. Now where would you find hissing and steaming jungles? And if you look at the passage, if you say read it, and you will know which jungle they are talking about, they would read it and they would come to this word tropical. And you would immediately know it's a tropical jungle. So what's the weather like? It's going to be hot. Therefore, hissing and steaming. A hot, damp, steaming jungle. That's what it is. And therefore, there is a fecundity of growth everywhere. So that's a jungle that they are describing. So it's wonderful. And then you say, now that we've talked about personification, do you think you can find me a metaphor? And even if you have one student in that class who can find that metaphor, it is still worth it because the class belongs to the children and you have not pushed in and told them where the metaphor is. They, even as a representation of one, has managed to tell you where the metaphor is. And the metaphor is going to be here, the canvas of the jungle. So the jungle, therefore, how would you make it into a simile? You ask and somebody will tell you, Miss, the jungle is like a canvas. Absolutely. It is like a canvas, and what is painted on that canvas? And you would come to the birds and you would come to the howler monkey and all of these. Howler monkey, you've got whoops and screams, which is the sound, the onomatopoeia coming in there. So you'll find in a small passage like that is rich with senses and rich with poetic devices. See? And all of this they have found. The simile, the metaphor, the personification, all of it is there. And if we were to give them a piece of writing later and say, create a different kind of jungle for me. Not the hissing and steaming one, but a different jungle, that would be quite an exciting task. And what would they use in it? They would use sense words and they would use poetic devices. So what has your mentor text done? Your mentor text has actually taught me that I can use senses and I can use poetic devices and produce an exemplary piece of work. I can write because I have now 2 amazing parameters on which to park my writing. As opposed to just saying, in 150 words, please do a description of a jungle. And then the children write something like, the jungle was very thick and scary. There were many birds on the trees, or something to that effect. This is very banal. They might do a little better in grade 9, hopefully. However, you haven't taught them the parameters of writing. So this is what I mean by how you teach. I am giving you a sample. And then you say, look at all the exotic words. Now, instead of saying there were many trees, or there were howler monkeys, and there were green birds, how has he managed to create this tropical jungle? And you will come across words like sure-footed, tangles, flecked, splashed. Do they have an exotic feel? They do. They're amazing, those words. They almost give you a feel of that jungle. You feel like you are in it, and that's important, right? Is the word countless better than many? So there's a word countless. Is it better than writing many? Many is a banal word. Countless has got a certain exotica about it, right? What might this passage be used for? Would it be used for an advertisement, you think? For South America maybe? Or a brochure? Does it tempt you to go and visit the place? So what kind of writing is that? Which genre is that? Something that tempts you, that uses an advertisement, is persuasion. So therefore, the genre in this is persuasive, right? Persuading you to be attracted to this wonderful jungle or this wonderful setting that they have created. Now, you can now move into writing. So let me quickly talk to you about a few parameters. So one is to ask what is the genre. So they may say it is a description, which is fine. You don't even need to come to the persuasion. It's a descriptive genre. Where are you likely to find this writing? These are questions to ask. You will find it in advertisements, you will find it in brochures, you will find it here. What is the purpose? Who are they writing for? Who is the audience? Obviously a tourist, obviously somebody who likes jungles, obviously somebody who loves to read great descriptions, somebody from advertising, or somebody from writing itself, a creative writing student, maybe and what is the purpose? To attract you. Does it convey these experiences properly? Is it good? Is it done well? Are there reasons? Are there challenges? That sort of questions is your first question. The second one is, where is it set? Easy one, jungle. The third one is, are there unfamiliar words and can you guess from the context? We already did. The next one is, analyze for sight words. So those 5 senses we've already done. And the sight words is what we call imagery. Imagery sounds scary, but it's just sight words. All the sights words are images that are created. What is the action in this? Is it slow or is it fast? Another very important question, because if in this one particularly it is slow, there is a certain where they are enjoying it, the jungle, or maybe they are enjoying it and a little scared. So these emotions again is something that you might want to decipher and ask, what sort of emotion is there in these children who are going through the jungle, or these adults who are going through the jungle? We are not very sure what they were, right? So the actions and the emotions are extremely important. Does it have any devices? And we just found 3 amazing devices there. And of course, the word cluster. If you look at all the words, are the words positive? Are the words negative, or are the words neutral? This is something that you should ask. And you will find that a lot of the words there are positive, and there are a few words that are perhaps negative. A sort of an ambivalent, feel of very nice yet a sense of danger is both existing. So that's what the writer has done, see, and that's the mood that is created for you. Would you like to be alone in this jungle at night? I'm not sure. See, unless you ask children these questions, they won't know. They'll just read it and say what is the meaning of this, what is the meaning of sure-footed, what is the meaning of tangle of roots, and give 3 words to describe the jungle. This is meaningless education. There must be an inner excitement when children read. So that is one, and then you can do a lot of grammar. Suppose if I look at this and say accompanied by and effortlessly, that's a way of starting a sentence with a past participle kind of phrase. I can do a lot of grammar. If grammar has been done, then grammar is one of these things. You can look at nouns, what kind of adjectives have they used, and they are exotic adjectives. Once you learn these adjectives, I'll expect you to use it in your writing at some stage, right? So I would actually put it into my little black book, all the wonderful words that I learnt in this passage and which I think I must use in my writing. So that's a determination to make sure that I will write because I have read. So that's what we need to get at. And then what do we do? Now you have done one of these and awesome, we have done this very well and we are very happy, and you would say, okay, next we are going to write about a jungle, maybe we can write about a mountain or a river or something. We will still be using some of these parameters that we have talked about. However, don't jump them straight in the deep end. Make sure that they get a little bit of practice. And how do you do that? You get 4 more texts like this or 10 more texts like this. Whatever you can get, it doesn't have to be so long even, it can be just 4 lines. But get those texts and give it to students in pairs and tell them, I want you to write your comments on this. Did you find similes? Did you find personification? Did you find nouns that are interesting? Where do you think? Exactly the way we did this, get them to look at those 4 to 10 pieces in pairs and then collect it and take it home and take a look at it to see how many of them got it and how many of them are still struggling. Tell them the next day or even on that day, give them all the pieces together for homework and say, go home, take a look at these 4 or 6 or 10 pieces all put together in one sheet and make your comments and bring it back. And when they come back for the next session, each of those pairs will do a presentation. And the others who have looked at it at home will actually give them ideas and say, you missed this, that was there, did you notice this? And you will have a class that is rich, that is run by children, and you can be the observer sitting back and making your own notes on what children have learnt and what children need help with. This is intelligent teaching. So teachers, you need to work smart, not hard. This is smart work because I have not done just one piece now. I have managed to do 10 pieces and I have spent 2 periods, and my children have done reading and inference and poetry and all sorts of skills, and I can now say that if I do this 4 times a year, they would have done 40 pieces. I am telling you, there is absolutely nobody who will be able to touch your students in terms of competence if you work like this. When I give you something to write, again I will put you in pairs and ask you to write. By then, these parameters that I talk to you about are almost concrete in their minds, simply because they have done it 20 times, 30 times. It's second nature, and writing will now become effortless and strategic and competent, and it will be good and strong. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learnt a lot of lessons. Do go and try it in your classrooms and come back and write in the comments box and tell me how it went in your classes. So we will look at some of these in courses that I might do in the future or in videos that I might bring to you. So do keep in touch, subscribe, make sure that you press the bell notification, share the link and comment in the box. So until we meet again, keep smiling.